When I first started working on the bunker in 2021, I always considered it to be a standalone project. It wasn't part of a bigger universe back then. It was just a post-apocalyptic survivor story. Like many other things, it changed a lot during development, and by early 2022, it had become a Dominoverse 1999 project with the inclusion of the Astral Brotherhood. I could have just left it there and let it be its own anthology installment in the grander universe, but part of me always wanted to continue the story in some way, shape, or form. The original concept for Bunker Hill was always about following a new protagonist. In the first film, Adrian's fate was left up to the viewer's interpretation. Therefore, it wasn't necessarily a sequel to his specific story. In my past works, I was always the main character. This time, I wanted to try something different. In late 2022, I started filming with my cousin Daniel, who is also the composer for both films. We'll call that footage that we filmed the Damien cut, as he was playing the character Damien, a lone survivor of the Soliatite invasion who wanted answers regarding the Brotherhood and the Soliatites themselves. This was clear in his research notes, the VHS tapes he studied, and observations he made while out in the wasteland. We filmed about 90% of the movie within the span of just 2 days, and back then I was still using my Sony Handycam AX53, which I filmed the original bunker on. But as I continued to rewatch the footage and try to edit it, it was apparent that the cinematography did not match the original film. In fact, it was worse. Much worse. I had a vision for this film, and my overall direction and cinematography did not match said vision. The lighting was horrid, there was next to no B-roll filmed, the pacing and the story were weak. The original plot of Bunker Hill was about Damien following a breadcrumb trail via the VHS tapes, which led him to a house that was used as an outpost for the Astral Brotherhood before the invasion. He later learned through a looped radio broadcast that his grandfather was one of the founding members of the Brotherhood and was responsible for the downfall of civilization. I even left a little Easter egg in one of the Astral Brotherhood videos, where the founding members stood next to William Humphrey, and to his side was a badly photoshopped picture of Daniel, kind of tying it all together. While that wasn't necessarily a bad story, the execution on my behalf was rushed, amateurish, and I did not like it. This led to the writer's block era. While other projects like Salsicha and the Emissaries Files came to fruition, I spent the entire year of 2023 constantly rewriting the Bunker Hill script, coming up with new ideas and plot lines to try to salvage the story. It just wasn't adding up. I kept putting it to the side and became discouraged. This is when a good friend of mine, Brandon, also known as Vintage Productions, started teaching me the ways of mirrorless cameras. By the end of the summer of 2023, I invested in a Canon EOS R50. This type of technology was new to me. For the last 13 years, I had always used a camcorder, so going into this uncharted territory was intimidating and at first overwhelming. It took me several months to master the art of understanding shutter speed, ISO, aperture, to get the best possible picture quality. I had to learn what different focal lengths meant and how they acted. The big question was, how can I use these things to get the best cinematography? A month or so after I got the camera, I started getting closer to a work friend of mine, Matthew. From the moment I saw him at work, I always thought he'd be a good fit for a post-apocalyptic role. He had that kind of rugged look, like a survivor, or as I originally told him, like Bill from The Last of Us. He showed great interest and enthusiasm for this project that I was trying to make, so I decided to bring him aboard for a post-credit scene of him fighting off a Soliatite. This was during the period where I was learning the new camera, so it didn't really turn out well, but we got some great pictures and much-needed practice. A few months went by, and with Daniel and I's work schedules not really coinciding well, I had decided to have Matt take the mantle as Damien, now known as Mason. This was early 2024. Months passed, and even though I had new gear, a new lead actor, and a newly redesigned bunker set, I was still clueless as to how this story would go. The story was the final boss, if you would call it. Everything else was in place, but there was this key element that was missing from me. It wasn't until early April of 2024 that I finally settled on one of the various scripts, the addition of the Starstone. When I came up with the concept of Starstone, everything more or less finally clicked. Turns out what I was missing was the motive of the Soliatites, the mission of the humans before their demise. What drove the need to survive? Hope. And hope was Starstone. Starstone introduced the concept of time travel and filled in the cracks of the foundation for DV-99. I always envisioned Starstone as a glowing purple crystal or stone, and the closest thing I could find to it for a physical prop was a purple infinity stone off of Etsy. Barely a month later, we got to filming. Oddly enough, the first scene that we properly filmed was the post-credits scene with Brandon, Daniel, and Logan. Having all of those guys there in that moment was truly something magical. We all built this film in our own way, and having us all together was poetic in a sense. Brandon helped behind the scenes with the technical side of things. Daniel was there since day one, and Logan helped as the alien and allowed us to use his car. Matt also endured being the main character, something which he had never done before.
A lot of inspiration of what I was listening to came from like the Loki series soundtrack, and how it was like 60s and 70s inspired like electronic music kind of.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going for really, kind of like a 70s, early 80s, but like old retro, like worn tapes, dusty, like static, like, yeah.
Kind of like run down, kind of...
Right, but at the same time, like, there's still substance there. What's that little the glowing rock thing?
The Infinity Stone?
Yeah, the Infinity Stone.
Starstone.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Starstone. So I literally called this track Starstone. This one, like, you literally couldn't get any simpler. I relied heavily on the Logic and GarageBand have this thing called the Alchemy synth, which does a lot of the work for you. And so if you find the right Alchemy synth, it'll just like dance around and do a whole bunch of stuff by you literally just hitting one key. So when you do like...
That's just one key.
Well, that's two technically, but... And then you have the Alchemist choir. Sometimes you have to like fine tune it to get what you want, but most often they just already come like...
Oh, I like that.
That's literally just one key.
And it sounds like an actual choir.
Right. And then this one is what like the Starstone is going to sound like.
I recognize that.
And then it kind of like evolves the more you hold it. So when you put it all together... Talking about the Blippy Pots thing, which is kind of like the leitmotif for the Shadow Coalition.
Yeah.
Where is it? It's this one. It's gonna be your Blippy Pots. Hold up.
What made you name the Blippy Pops?
It sounds like Blippy Pots. So I kind of combined the track I originally had called Swarm, because, like I said, using that dissonance with like everything going on, it almost sounded like when like mosquitoes or like bees are flying around your head, and it just created that sense of like dread and like I need to get out of here. That like if you listen to it again in the beginning. So it's a lot of like pitch bends too. So this one, I think it's this one in particular. No, my bad, it's this one. So if you listen to it, it's literally just one note dipping in pitch. This is a whale noise sped up and reversed. Where is it? Come on. Where are you? Alright. I'm gonna isolate it and play it.
Okay.
It's literally like a whale going like and sped up and reversed. So check it out. No. Go here. And then I threw a bunch of reverb on
I
it.
like that. Where'd you get the whale sound effect or like stock?
Apple. And then this is called Satellite Passing.
Okay.
And I reversed it, slowed it down to like 0.25, the normal speed. And if you slow it down, it kind of like makes it sound choppy, which I kind of liked. But then you throw a bunch of reverb on anything and it sounds good. So it ends up sounding like this in the background.
That's great.
So yeah, this is the track Distant Reminiscing. I don't know if you're going to rename it or not, but that's what I called it.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll just throw on like an arpeggiator. I kind of slow down the arpeggiator.
Okay.
So it kind of almost sounds like raindrops, and or like in my mind it sounded like just like random thoughts like popping up here and there, and it also kind of filled the space nicely with this one. So I wanted something that sounded a little more lo-fi, but at the same time, like, I wanted a heroic and iconic sound for Mason. It's still, I don't know, I'm still like working on like something that's a little more subtle and in the background, but this one's kind of like very in your face, a little more than usual. So here's what it sounds like. I have like a very staticky, a very lo-fi kind of piano with little to no attack whatsoever, and it kind of just like creeps up on you instead of just kind of being like slamming. And then there's a bass. And you also have like a warm dust droning in the background. Trying to get as close to like a theremin sound as possible, and it's like really hard to replicate a theremin sound without a theremin, but the closest I can get is if you were to use like a tablet or something with touch controls, you can like change the keys by just like dragging your finger along the iPad. This is an iPad, so
Basically a theremin.
pretty much, and like that's as close as I can get. So I found the notes that I wanted, and then I was literally just like sitting there like pressing the keys and like moving my finger to the different keys so that there's no like room in between each of the notes, and they just kind of all like blend together, which is what a theremin is essentially. But like it was really hard trying to get that sound. Like if you can see right, like this is just, it just looks like it's all one note because it's literally just one finger press, and it's just one finger press and then me like going up and down the keyboard on the different notes that I wanted. So yeah, normally this is what it would sound like. But if I were to do it with the pitch, so, no, so yeah, that's, instead of it sounding like, it sounds like, it's so like it's really hard to mess up. I mean, it's really easy to mess up, and it's really hard to get the notes right because like you really need to any slight movement and you're done.
It's got to be like on point.
Right. So I'm pretty sure this take took me like 20 tries of trying to get it right. So a lot of it had to do with, I wanted Mason's theme to be in a key that sounded good with Adrian's theme, but was also different than the key that Adrian's theme was in. But like, Mason's theme is in the key of G minor, and Adrian's theme is in like, I think it's D minor, but like together they sound like heroic because of everything going on with Mason's. But like D minor and everything I did with the first bunker, pretty much everything was in D minor in the first bunker. But I want there to be like differing sounds and differing keys that still sound good when they come together.
Yeah.
And that was kind of cool when I kind of like put them together in this track. So this is in D minor because it's kind of like the callback to Adrian.
Yeah.
And if you see, I have Blippy Pots in here for the Shadow Coalition.
It's like your own little Easter egg.
And then I have the choir sound from the second one. And then I have like the eerie, kind of like buzzing bee kind of drone sound. So new pieces coming into the old part. I'm still trying to figure out how to fit in Mason's theme in here, but it's going in there somewhere.
Okay. That one's just iconic.
Of course. So this track is called PTSD. And there's a reason that like Adrian's theme is in this one. Again, dissonance. It doesn't sound good together, but like it makes sense to give you that visceral feel of like, oh my ears, you know, like.
Described it as being like a dark version of the bunker theme.
Yeah,
that was really cool.
For me, it made me think of like Adrian just laying on a table in like a white room with like lights blaring in his eyes, and then there's like beings that he doesn't know like what or who they are, just like around him.
So that you would explain that as your thought process behind like the first film. It was more glum. It was more
exactly
like hope was lost. But you would describe your process with this film soundtrack as like kind of the brink of hope.
Right. So the first one was very like noir in a sense, like very depressing, very foreboding. But then like this one, a little more hopeful. Little more heroic, but at the same time, like there's still mixed in those feelings of like foreboding, hopelessness, darkness, ominous mystery, you know, like. But I don't know, kind of like icing on the cake. Like the cake is still D minor, but then like there's icing. That's like G minor.
Some extra stuff on there.
Right.
Yeah.
Alright. So of course there's a lot of reverb on it, but essentially it's just one of these things. I don't know if it'll... It's called a goose hang. Guzheng. Okay. It's like some type of Eastern Asian stringed instrument, but I threw a bunch of reverb on it because I wanted it to sound almost like guitar-like, but like old broken guitar. And then you get something that sounds like this.
Very cool.
And then you can... Yeah, don't do that.
Very nice.
Mason's bunker was a fun set to design and decorate. Adrian's bunker in Universe was very last minute. It was all handmade, very claustrophobic, which fit the overall theme of the film. Whereas Mason's bunker is much more open. It's a lot brighter, more optimistic, and mysterious. There's a lot happening no matter where you look. There's the newspaper wall, the bare mattress on the floor, and even using an old CRT television with functioning VCR players. I personally wrote every newspaper clipping, every sticky note, and all the sketches within Mason's notebook. There are so many Easter eggs in that bunker that I've lost count. I wanted to give the place a very retro feel, a workshop, if you will. We saw the return of Adrian, who changes from his iconic denim blue jacket to an outfit that was inspired by the likes of Nicolas Cage in the 2018 film Mandy. From the baseball shirt, down to the bandages on the hands, to the iconic shades. I always wanted Mason's look to have a flannel. Matt inserted some of his own ideas onto the character's design, such as the sunglasses, the shamag, and his extensive knowledge of firearms. The attic set was a tricky one. It serves as the final base of operations for the Archivist and Roosevelt, who are part of the emissaries. We had empty food cans all over the place, and I used laundry lint to scatter around the floor, giving it that messy and disorganized look. To achieve the look of the Archivist's body, I filled up old dress clothes of mine with folded shirts and pants to give it a sense of structure, and I stained a button-up shirt with coffee. Then I threw that in the oven to let it dry. The head of the Archivist was created by a person off of Etsy called Dr. Rot's Shock Shop, and it's sort of a mummified, decomposed head, which looks very real. Filming in the attic set during peak summer months was a whole different story. Temperatures in there reached over 120 degrees, which is apparent with the amount of sweat on our faces. Different props around the attic set also started to melt. It was brutal, and that's why a lot of the attic scenes feature Adrian more than Mason, because I didn't want Matt to be up there for so long and suffer from heat stroke. At the end of the day, no matter how good or bad Bunker Hill ages within the long run, I have still learned a lot from it, and I think that's what's most important. Looking back at the original footage compared to what we have now, the jump in quality is unlike anything that's ever happened before in my filmography. 1710 Bunker Hill Avenue wasn't just a movie. It was a learning experience. I learned how to better my craft. I learned how to utilize my camera, proper lighting equipment. I worked with microphones and different actors. It was a test of willpower, of patience. My first ever movie, a Very Ned movie, which I directed by myself, took 3.5 years to make, compared to Bunker Hill's 2.5. In a weird way, Bunker Hill is the modern-day A Very Ned movie. Both films forced me to learn in order to achieve. Both films were a beginning. And going forward, I'll always use what I've learned on the set of this movie. The friendships that were strengthened, the memories made, the good times and the bad times. They'll stay with me until my last breath. It's our experiences that shape us. And with that, keep imagining and keep creating.